Have you ever wondered how you can progress with your drawing, with your art especially as a whole, but particularly with your drawing if you don't have a sketchbook? Or perhaps you're wanting to save your sketchbook for some experimenting, some nicer, more in-depth, intricate drawings. And what do you do if you're wanting to improve and go back to basics and do all those lines and shapes? And perhaps you're wanting to do some gesture drawing and you're just wanting to copy a lot of references and go over and over and over the same subject material, but you don't want to fill your sketchbook with the same kinds of laborious, repetitive warm-up exercises. What are you going to do? Or it could be that you've either run out of money or not been paid on time, or perhaps you're away, or you find yourself in a waiting room and you'd really like to be a bit productive while you're sitting waiting, and you just don't know what, oh, you could draw. But what do you draw on? Well, fortunately, there are lots of options. And I discovered this a little bit by accident. When I was doing a little bit of decluttering, I came across a couple of options for drawing and drawing and drawing and continuing. And the good thing about a lot of drawing is that you're going to be improving. That's the name of the game, really. They say the more that you draw, the more drawing hours that you get in, the more that your observation skills are going to improve, your hand-eye coordination will improve, and you'll develop your own style. There are all sorts of benefits. The first place this started is because I had this urge to get back into art, but I'd been doing abstract art for a long time and I didn't have all the skills that I was wanting and needing, and I didn't have all the theory and all the bells and whistles that go with being a good artist. There was so much that I wanted to improve, and I just wasn't sure where to begin. So I decided to allow myself to do a sketch a day. And initially I reached for a sketchbook, but it wasn't there. So I used a notebook that happened to be handy. And before long, that notebook was finished and I had this urge to draw some more. So since I didn't have the type of sketchbook that I wanted, I noticed a cheap one for children, really, in a little section of a stationery section of a store that had all sorts of household things and a shelf or two of stationery stuff. And on that shelf was a very, very cheap sketchbook. So that's an option you can use. And then I discovered all sorts of options and opportunities. Take a look at some of the drawings that I've done and that I've had fun doing, and then I'll come back and I'll share a little bit more and chat a little bit more, and perhaps I'll come up with a couple more lessons. So here we see a couple of options, an old diary with using the lines for lots of different lines and shapes repeatedly over all the blank pages. Here we get some opportunity to see some old typing paper doing squares, boxes, working on some faces, a little bit of abstract art, working on some flowers, more abstract art, coming to some printing paper that I did a number of flowers on, switching to work in pen and ink, and of course the pen and ink markings. And then one of the places where I really began all my drawing on what I had available, and that was having fun with an old roll of fax paper. So here's I really need two hands to do this. A nice flip through some old fax paper that became wonderful material to be able to practice drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing. Actually, I had a very long roll of fax paper, and I cut it into various pieces using some of the drawings for a specific album, a specific project. And here you can see a few more flowers and some drawing of pots. And then I was drawing a couple of fun things for Purim time, and loads more drawings. And as you can see, there's plenty of opportunity if you use up what you have available. I do hope that you enjoyed watching those little bits of drawing. It was a lot of fun putting it all together. So I thought I'd share a little bit more about. This is what I showed a little bit of. It's not a lovely fan. It was all rolled up as one long roll of fax paper, which looked a little bit like this, only a whole lot neater and a whole lot fatter. It was covered in a kind of a packaging, and I don't remember exactly where it came from. Somebody had given it to me saying that since you're starting a private practice, you're going to need all sorts of different kinds of paper, and perhaps you'd like this fax paper. Well, I never did get to have the kind of fax machine that used that paper, and the roll just got put in one drawer and one box and moved from place to place. And I was always wondering, what could I do with this? And then one day it dawned on me, it's not just for faxing, it's paper, and paper is just what I need for drawing. So that's where that drawing came from. And I dare say there are loads more drawings on that roll of what was fax paper. I haven't yet decided what I can do with all of those drawings. Perhaps you can put a comment, a suggestion in the comments below, and I'll have a look and see which one I like the best, and perhaps I'll come back and show you what I've done with all those drawings, or I don't know, depends on what I get to do with them. But another option I found was all these scrap pieces of paper, which could have been from having actually sent a fax. And you know, you get that message that says fax sent successfully, and then there's all this space that's you're not really going to be using unless you're going to be filing all these pages that are predominantly just one line of text and mostly blank space. So that was the perfect space to be able to do a whole lot of drawing. And then there was this typing paper I'd been given, and these pieces of printing paper that got crumpled a little bit. They weren't any longer suitable for doing printing, and so it went. The more that one looks, the more you might discover all sorts of pieces of paper, notebooks, diaries you haven't completed, calendars you haven't completed. There's really quite a lot of paper around if you stop to think about it. And we could just throw it all out, and once you've finished your endless exercises, it's really beneficial to do circles and lines and shapes and squares and all sorts of different shapes and repeat them and go over and over them, and that's how you're going to progress. But you might not want to be keeping all of those pages. So if you're going to be throwing the page out already, fill it first with some of those squiggles and lines and shapes, and progress from there to doing all sorts of other drawings. And then once you're happy with the drawings that you're doing, then you can progress to using a sketchbook. And maybe we'll talk in another time about some lessons that I've learnt along the way of how to enjoy using your sketchbook. In the meantime, I hope that this has been a fun video for you, and let me know what you think about it. I look forward to chatting in another video.